Good afternoon, students. Welcome to the lecture of real analysis 2. Let us have a look at the concepts we have studied in previous two lectures. The lemma we have proved in this one is for any set A, E1, E2, En be the finite sequence of disjoint measurable sets. Remember this sequence is disjoint measurable sets. Then we have proved outer measure of A intersection union Ei with summation of outer measures of A intersection Ei. We have proved this lemma by using a mathematical induction, and actual use of this lemma is to say that the outer measure is finitely additive. Right now, this is what the note we have written. The proof we have seen in detail, no doubt. In the note we have written if A is equal to R, the underlying set, whatever is used in the statement itself, if it is a set of all real numbers, then it turns out to be outer measure of union I from 1 to n ei with summation I from 1 to n m star of ei. Therefore, this gives us m star is finitely additive, and this lemma we have used to show that the collection curly m of all measurable sets is sigma algebra. The collection curly m of all measurable sets is sigma algebra. What we know sigma algebra is? Sigma algebra is collection of subsets of a given set which is closed under complementation, countable union and countable intersection. Okay. Therefore, in order to prove that this curly m, collection curly m of measurable sets is sigma algebra, what we want to prove? Two conditions to check. First, complementation, that is the set is closed under complementation and it is closed under countable union. But the fact is known to us, countable complement of measurable set is measurable and finite union of measurable sets is also measurable. Therefore, with these two, the set curly m becomes algebra itself. To show it is sigma algebra, it is remains to show only that it is closed under countable union. The aim is to show that countable union of measurable sets is measurable. And then the proof we have seen in detail. Assuming E to be the countable union of disjoint measurable sets, we have found the value of measurability. Before that, we have written Fn to be finite union of these disjoint measurable sets. Then we have written the statement for the measurability of Fn. Then just calculated the two values on the right side of the statement number 1. Outer measure of A intersection Fn and outer measure of A intersection Fn complement. Calculating both the values and substituting in the above equation, we have obtained outer measure of A is this number 4, and then finally we have proved outer measure of A is greater or equal by outer measure of A intersection E and A intersection E complement, proving that the set E is measurable. Therefore, we have proved that the collection curly m is a sigma algebra. Later, we have proved a lemma interval A infinity is measurable. This lemma is to prove that every Borel set is measurable. I will come to the point of Borel set later. Therefore, the lemma we have proved is the interval A infinity is measurable. To prove this interval is measurable according to the definition, m star of A, either we have to prove equal to or greater equal to m star of A intersection A infinity, m star of A intersection A infinity complement. This we have denoted by A1, A intersection A infinity, and this second one, A intersection A infinity complement, we have denoted by A2, right? And then respectively we have found the covering for A, covering for AN, covering for A1 and A2. The covering of A is used to find out the coverings for A1 and A2. The coverings we have found is union ion dash and union ion double dash. Okay. Later we have proved that ion is union of these two coverings, ion dash and ion double dash. This equation holds. Therefore, the job remains to find out simply the outer measures. Then we have found the outer measures of A1, outer measure of A2. Adding these two, we have got this relation, right? And this, once we get this relation, since its long is arbitrary, m star of A is greater or equal by m star of A1 plus m star of A2. Means we have proved that the interval A infinity, whatever we have written, is measurable. Now the next job is to prove that every Borel set is measurable. Every Borel set is measurable. Therefore, now we will have looked at the concept of what is Borel set actually. Okay, in order to understand Borel set, let us recall from algebra itself. In short, we will recall. What is algebra we have studied? Yes, what is an algebra? Algebra or Boolean algebra, no? What, suppose X be the collection of subsets of a particular set C. Okay. Then this set, which is a collection of subsets, I call. This is collection of subsets. Subsets of any set, say A, of any set A say. Okay. Then when we say that this X is an algebra, first condition is, yes, can anyone recall?
Closed under
Complement.
complementation and closed
Good, this
under
is
union.
which union?
Finite union.
Finite union.
Very good. Closed under complementation, and the second is closed under finite union. When it is closed under complementation and union, by De Morgan's laws, one can say that this is closed under finite intersection also.
Intersect.
Okay. Then we have moved to a next concept of sigma algebra. Already we have written, just I am recalling. What is sigma algebra? Again, X to be the collection of subsets of A. Then when it will be said to be a sigma algebra?
Countable
Countable
complementation.
union of
Very good. First condition will be as it is, closed under complementation. Right. The second one we will write, instead of finite union, this is arbitrary or countable union. Closed under arbitrary or countable union. And number 3 is closed under countable intersection as well. Right. So we have seen the examples of sigma algebra differently. Okay. Now what the job we were going to do, we were going to find out a next definition to be Borel sigma algebra. What we were going to find out, this is Borel sigma algebra. I think this was first time we were writing that. Let me write it here. Regular. Okay. What is Borel sigma algebra? Borel was the word taken in the honor of a mathematician, Emile Borel. I will write the information later. First we'll see what is Borel sigma algebra. Okay. Now a sigma algebra is said to be Borel sigma algebra if it is the intersection of all sigma algebras containing open sets. Okay. Let me write a sigma algebra. A sigma algebra is said to be Borel sigma algebra. Borel sigma algebra, and the notation is curly B used. In book it was shown like this. Okay. Borel sigma algebra, if whatever is this curly B, we are writing intersection of all sigma algebra X alpha, where X alpha is sigma algebra containing sigma algebra containing every open set. Containing every open set. Okay. See, whatever is the set X defined on which we are finding sigma algebra, in intersection of all six such a sigma algebras containing all open sets of the given set X is called as Borel sigma algebra, or one can write this is the smallest sigma algebra. The smallest sigma algebra containing all open sets. Containing all open sets of given set X set. Is that clear to everyone? Whenever we are taking the intersection of all the sigma algebras, no doubt we are going to get a smallest sigma algebra. Correct now? Okay. For a defined set X, okay, what we were going to find out, this is a given set, say, initial given set. Then we were finding the sigma algebra denoted by X alpha as of this symbol, X alpha. Then we were finding how many such a sigma algebras are going to exist? many sigma algebras are going to exist. No, because one relation we know that every finite algebra is also a sigma algebra. Therefore, for a given set, suppose the set is suppose the given set is an infinite set. And how many finite algebras one can find out? Many finite algebras one can find. All those finite algebras will be sigma algebras. Okay. Therefore, among all those sigma algebras, first we will find out the sigma algebras containing all open sets of the given set. Okay. Then taking the intersection. Whenever we take the intersection, it will become the smallest sigma algebra. Therefore, Borel sigma algebra is defined to be the smallest sigma algebra containing all open sets of a given set X. Okay. Now here I'll write the information about Borel. Okay. This Borel set was the name given in the honor of a mathematician, Emile Borel. Emile Borel. He was a French mathematician. Okay. His life tenure is 7 January 1871 to 3 February 1956. Clear? Try to get this. What is Borel sigma algebra? Borel sigma algebra is intersection of all possible sigma algebras containing every open set. Rather, it is the smallest sigma algebra containing all open set. Then the next definition, Borel set is given as, what is Borel set then? A set which is the member of Borel sigma algebra. A set which is the member of Borel sigma algebra. Here I will write any set contained in Borel sigma algebra. Any set contained in Borel sigma algebra is called Borel set. Is called Borel set. Okay. So Borel set is actually a most generalized concept of category of set. Earlier we know only two categories, no? In our syllabus we have studied. One category is open set category. Second is closed set category. So this Borel set is somewhat a generalization of those two categories of open set and closed set. Okay, and therefore this is a set contained in Borel sigma algebra. Therefore, if I am writing Borel sigma algebra is a sigma algebra containing every open set, itself is a sigma algebra. Therefore, may I say it will contain every closed set as well? Because complement of open set is closed set, no? And sigma algebra is closed under complementation. Correct or no? Okay. Therefore, Borel sigma algebra is the smallest sigma algebra containing all open set of a given set X, and Borel set is a member of Borel sigma algebra. Borel set is member of Borel sigma algebra. Is the definitions clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Suppose now if I want to elaborate this example by this definition by taking an example, what I'm going to take an example is, suppose I'm taking an example. Initially, I'm taking a set X to be open interval 0, 1 say. Open interval 0, 1 say. Then what is sigma algebra defined on this? What is the sigma algebra defined on this? This will be the collection of all open intervals in 0, 1. If I am writing say X alpha. What I am writing? Collection of all open intervals. Is it clear? Collection of all open. How many open intervals we have which is included in 0, 1? Yes? How many open intervals are there? Infinite, no? Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now we will check whatever this X alpha we have taken, which is the collection of all open intervals in open interval 0, 1, whether it is sigma algebra or not. Whether it is sigma algebra or not. Let me just draw a line. Okay. Now the job is to locate this position. Open interval 0, 1. Now we were considering all open intervals included in 0, 1. So these are the intervals, no? These kind of intervals we have, right? These all are the intervals under the consideration. But if I consider any interval, what about its complement? Suppose here I am taking an interval, say denoted by I, the first interval, this interval. Okay, what about its complement? The rest interval, excluding I, no? Whether it is contained in X itself.
Yes, ma'am.
Therefore, may I say this is closed under complementation. This is true for an arbitrary open interval. Whatever the open interval you take, its complement must be in open 0, 1. Therefore, this X alpha, first I will say this is closed under complementation. This is closed under complementation. Now what I am going to check? I am going to check whether it is closed under countable union. What will happen if I take the countable union of these open intervals, say I1, I2, I3 and so on. Whatever the intervals are there in this open interval 0, 1, we will take the countable union. What about the countable union? Whether it is in 0, 1 or not?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Yes, it is. Therefore, may I say this is closed under countable union also. This is closed under countable union. Therefore, may I say whatever X alpha we have taken is a sigma algebra. What is X
Yes,
alpha I
ma'am.
have taken? X alpha I have taken to be the collection of all open intervals in 0, 1. Okay. Now, lastly, what we will take? Intersection of all such a sigma algebras. Lastly, we will take intersection of all such a sigma algebras and we will denote it by curly B, and this will be my Borel sigma algebra. This will be my Borel sigma algebra. Rather, Borel sigma algebra will be sub-sigma algebra of the sigma algebra. Now, sub-sigma algebra is not, we have not studied in your syllabus. Therefore, I'll just keep it. Therefore, this is one of the sigma algebra of a given set, and rather this one will be the smallest. Okay, and this sigma algebra we have taken containing all open intervals, and all open intervals are nothing but the open sets of this given set X, no? Therefore, this X alpha is the collection of all open intervals, or I can say open sets. Open sets in closed interval 0, 1. Therefore, okay, now every element of this X Borel sigma algebra is now the Borel set. Every element of Borel sigma algebra is a Borel set. So what is the nature of the sets of Borel sigma algebra? The definition says that it will be the open sets. Correct, na? Why it is open sets? Because we were considering this Borel sigma algebra to be intersection of sigma algebra containing open sets, all open sets of the given set. Okay, and it is closed under complementation. Complement of open set is closed set. Therefore, may I say this Borel sigma algebra contains all open sets and closed sets also. Therefore, what is the nature of your Borel set? What is the nature of a Borel set? Open or closed, not clopen. Clopen, if I say, then it is both closed and open. Therefore, Borel set may be open or the Borel set may be a closed set. Therefore, this is the next generalized category of set. Open set, closed sets together are bound in one definition, one category, and is called as the Borel set. Okay. Now, what kind of sets those are? Those are the sets which are the members of Borel sigma algebra. Means the sigma algebra gives me closeness under complementation, closeness under countable union also. Okay, this is what I have made it very simpler to understand what is the Borel set. Okay, Borel sets simply one can say those are the members of smallest sigma algebra containing all open sets. Correct? Okay. Therefore, what is Borel set actually? Borel set is open set and closed set, which are the members of Borel sigma algebra. Okay. Now let me go to the main theorem which we want to prove in today's lecture, that every Borel set is measurable. Every Borel set is measurable. Every Borel set is measurable. So here one can say, what is Borel set we have just found? Every open set and closed set. One particularly one can say, in order to prove Borel set is measurable, we wanted to prove that each open set and each closed set is measurable. Correct, na? Because Borel set is both open and closed. Therefore, every Borel set is either open or closed. So, in order to prove Borel set is measurable, our aim is to show that each open set and each closed set is measurable. Correct? Any difficulty after this?
No, ma'am.
Good. Now let me go to prove that each open set and each closed set is measurable. Now to prove this, we were going to use that previous lemma. Which lemma we have proved? Lemma is the statement used to prove the main theorem. Before this, we have proved one lemma in the last lecture, that this A infinity is measurable, no? Just now we have recalled it also. A infinity is measurable. Now using this, my aim is to prove that every open interval is measurable first. Then we will go for every open set is measurable. Then we will write every closed set is measurable. Okay. Now, as of we have proved A infinity is measurable, the job is to prove that any interval, rather any open interval is measurable. If this is measurable, according to the theorem or the lemma we have proved, complement of measurable set is measurable. Therefore, may I say complement of this interval is also measurable?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But here what I will write, let curly M be collection of all blue ink I want to use. Let curly M be collection of all measurable sets measurable sets. Okay. Now what we have proved, I'll write, we know that this open interval A infinity is in curly M. That is, this set is measurable. Okay. Now what I will write next is its complement. What is the complement? Why this is so? Complement of measurable set is
Measurable set is measurable.
Very good. Complement of measurable set is measurable. What is the complement?
Minus infinity to closed A.
Yes, minus infinity to closed A is in curly M. That is, this set is measurable. No, belongs to curly M means this is measurable. This set is measurable. Now what we wanted to write? We wanted to write this collection or this interval minus infinity to closed A as the countable union of some sets. Okay. How I am going to write it? See, just I will write as countable union of minus infinity to B minus 1 by n. Okay. Minus infinity to B minus 1 by n. N running from 1 to infinity. Is it okay? Sorry, minus infinity to some B I wanted to write. Here I will write also. Is this point clear? You just check. You have any difficulty? You
Yes,
can ask.
ma'am.
This is the line we have. Somewhere here it is minus infinity and somewhere here is the point mark we are going to mark as B. Okay. Then what is B minus 1 by n? If I take this to be B minus 1 by n for n equal to 1, what is the point it is? Is it B minus
B
1?
minus 1.
Next, if I take n equal to 2, this is b minus 1 by 2. Then b minus 1 by 3. And if I just go on proceeding to n equal to infinity, this will give me b. Therefore, one can say this interval minus infinity to b, one can write as the countable union of these sets. Right now? But just now we have written this type of sets are measurable. Minus infinity to some closed A. Right now? Therefore, may I write this is countable union of measurable sets. Sorry, I made a mistake here. This is open. Correct now? For n equals to infinity, we are going towards B as n is tending to infinity. Therefore, whatever these are sets we have written, it is already measurable. Therefore, whatever the set we have written minus infinity to B is countable union of measurable sets, no? Therefore, may I say minus infinity to open B is measurable again? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Here, minus infinity to B is countable union of. This is countable union of measurable sets. Countable union of measurable sets. Therefore, may I say minus infinity to B is also measurable. Is also measurable. Therefore, may I write open minus infinity to B belongs to curly M. Okay. Now we have two types of sets in curly M. Open interval A infinity, open interval minus infinity to B. What about their intersection? Again, the intersection will be measurable, no? Intersection
Yes,
of
ma'am.
two sets is measurable. Now we just wanted to check what is their intersection. What is their intersection is the job to check. Somewhere here it is minus infinity, somewhere here it is plus infinity. Now we were claiming minus infinity to open B is measurable, and the first statement tells me open A infinity is also measurable. Therefore here I will write A infinity. What is the intersection of both? Is it open interval AB?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Correct, no? So this is the intersection open interval AB. Therefore, now we were going to write, next I will write intersection minus, A infinity intersection minus infinity B equal to open interval E infinity is also measurable. Correct now? That is from the lemma A infinity is measurable. What we have proved? Any open interval is measurable we have proved. Right or wrong? Any open interval AB is measurable. Therefore, open interval AB belongs to curly M. Belongs to curly M. But what is the job actually? The job is to prove Borel set is measurable. That is, each open set, each closed set is measurable. Now we have proved open interval is measurable, but the fact we know that every open set is countable union of open intervals. Correct now? Here we have proved thus every open interval is measurable. Every open interval is measurable. But we know every open set is countable collection of open intervals. Okay? But we know that each open set is countable union of open intervals. Then what about an open set? Measurable or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Because every open interval is measurable. Open set is written as a countable union of open intervals. All those open intervals are measurable. Therefore, here may I write each open set is measurable. Each open set is measurable. Okay. Also, what is the complement of open set?
Closed set.
Closed set.
Complement of open set is closed set. Therefore, if open set is measurable, complement of open set is closed set. May I write? Hence, closed set is also measurable. Closed set is measurable. Okay. Yes or no? Therefore, may I write directly? Thus, each Borel set or every Borel set is measurable. Every Borel set is measurable. In order to understand this theorem, actually, the definition of Borel set should be clear to you. Then only you can understand each Borel set is measurable. To prove each Borel set is measurable, we have started with the lemma open A infinity is measurable. With this, we have proved any open interval is measurable. Once we prove any open interval is measurable, every open set will be measurable. Once open set is measurable, it will give you closed set is measurable. Hence, one can say that every Borel set is measurable. Every Borel set is measurable because Borel set is a member of Borel sigma algebra, where Borel sigma algebra is intersection of all sigma algebras containing open sets of a given set. If it contains open set, it has to contain closed set because it is closed under complementation. Is the point clear to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't think so that everyone has understood it clearly. Okay, you just revise the definition of Borel set. The simple example also I have given you in order to understand Borel set. Okay, now let me go to a next point. The whole discussion we have made in order to say that the counter, we have started with an outer measure, no, initially. How many properties of outer measure we have checked out? Outer measure is non-negative, outer measure is translation invariant, outer measure is monotone, outer measure is countably subadditive. Correct, no? And in the last lecture, we have proved that outer measure is finitely additive also. Outer measure is finitely additive, but we have not proved that the outer measure is countably additive. To do this, we were going to define a restriction function of an outer measure. Okay, let me tell you again. M star is an outer measure we have defined on power set of R. And the domain is, codomain is R plus union infinity. How many properties it is going to follow? First is non-negative. Outer measure is non-negative. Second property, translation invariant. Translation invariant. Next, monotone also we have proved, right now? Monotone. What is the next? Countable subadditive. Countable subadditive. Okay, but we have not proved that this outer measure is countably additive. Countably additive is the question mark. We have not proved in case of outer measure. This is what the fact actually. Rather, we have proved it as finitely additive for the disjoint measurable sets. But that's a particular case. In order to have this countable additivity for an outer measure, what I'm saying, in order to have countable additive property. Why countable additive property is essential? Because we want this measure to be a generalization of length, okay, or an extension of length function. If a length function is countably additive, therefore we want whatever the measure we have defined to be countably additive. But on this domain, what is this domain? Power set of R. Power set of R means we have taken collection of all subsets of a set R. All subsets we have taken, right? But on this domain, we were getting only countable sub-additivity, not countable additivity. We were not going to get it as countable additivity. Therefore, what mathematicians have thought, why not to restrict the domain? Why not to restrict the domain of this major function and just check it out whether it gives countable additivity or not. Okay. And this was given by a mathematician Lebesgue when he has defined a new function, say m, and this is called as Lebesgue measure. The previous one is also defined by Lebesgue itself, but the name was Lebesgue outer measure. Now it was simply Lebesgue measure, and this Lebesgue measure is nothing but outer measure, but with a restricted domain. But with a restricted domain, and the domain for this new measure function was taken to be curly M. What is curly M?
Collection of all measurable sets.
Measurable sets. Very good. Measurable sets, no? Okay. And the codomain is very usual. This is R plus 2 extended infinity. Okay. Understood? What is the function? This is Lebesgue outer measure. This is Lebesgue outer measure. Okay. That is Lebesgue itself. Lebesgue has given the definition. But he has proved non-negativity, this one, this one, this one. But the question is regarding countable additivity. That's why Lebesgue has modified this function outer measure by restricting the domain. That is, instead of considering all the subsets of the given set, that is all power set in short, power set of R, he has restricted the domain to be measurable sets of R. Only measurable sets of R, and the name was given Lebesgue measure only. The name is Lebesgue measure, and how the function is defined? The function is defined as m of E is equal to m star of E. Means we were finding outer measure only, but not for all subsets of R. It is only for measurable sets. Okay, the outer measure calculated for the measurable sets is called as Lebesgue measure. Let me repeat. Outer measure calculated for the measurable sets is nothing but the Lebesgue measure. Okay, and with this new definition of Lebesgue measure, mathematician Lebesgue has checked out whether this gives us countable additivity property, and the countable additivity holds with a restriction that the sets, measurable sets under the consideration are pairwise disjoint, because you have seen in the previous lemma also m star of A union EI, etc. In that lemma also we have taken EI to be pairwise disjoint sets. Therefore, for pairwise disjoint sets, this new Lebesgue measure gives us countable additive property. Okay, understood what is new measure and why it is being defined with this way?
Yes, ma'am.
लक्षात येते ना सगळ्यांच्या?
Yes, ma'am.
Lebesgue measure is nothing but outer measure, Lebesgue outer measure, but only defined for measurable set. Previously we were defining it for all subsets of R. Now we will define only for the measurable subsets of R. Okay, just write the definition there. Lebesgue measure. And whatever is this new measure we were going to define is called as a restriction function. What I told you to revise, na? Restriction function and extension function. What is restriction function? I told you to revise these 2 points actually. Suppose we have already have a function defined for a set A, say f. is a function defined from A to R. Okay. Now let us consider B to be a subset of A. B to be a subset of A. Now here on this, a function f is working. If the function f is working on f, whether it works on B or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
It is.
ma'am.
Yes, it is going to work for B. Now, but if I change the domain, once I change the domain of a function, f from A to B, no doubt codomain is set of real numbers. Whenever we change the function, the new function, let me denote it by star. For now, which function I am going to define? F star. But what is the condition? F is equal to F star on B. For this, F star is nothing but F itself. F star is nothing but F, but restricted for the domain B. Okay. In this case, the function F star is called as restriction function. The function obtained by restricting the domain of our original function. Correct now? I have restricted it from A to B. Smaller domain I have selected. Therefore, this function is called as extension function. Okay. And in the reverse way, f is called as an extension function. Instead of restriction, or here we have started with f given initially, and then we have moved towards f star. If we do a reverse process, that is, if f star was given initially from B to R, and if I am going to extend the function f star defined on B to f defined on A, that is, we were extending the domain from B to A, then the function is called as extension function. This is what a simple idea. Restriction function and extension function. Now what we were doing here, whether we were restricting the domain or extending the domain?
Restricting the
ma'am.
We were restricting the domain. That's why this Lebesgue measure is a restriction function or Lebesgue outer measure. Or Lebesgue outer measure. Let me write the definition. Definition of Lebesgue measure. Lebesgue measure. A function small m defined on curly m to R plus union extended infinity defined by. Defined by. How it is being defined? M of E is equals to M star of E. E is called Lebesgue measure of E. Lebesgue measure of E, where curly m is sigma algebra of Lebesgue measurable sets. Lebesgue measurable sets. We have proved it already, na? Sigma algebra. Curly m is sigma algebra. Okay. So for restricting the domain of outer measure function to be a sigma algebra of Lebesgue measurable sets, we have defined a new measure called as Lebesgue measure. Now the job is to check simply whether this new measure gives us countable additivity property or not. Okay. Yes or no? Understood or not? Okay. So now let me write whether m is a set function or not. This m is a set function, no doubt. Okay. And for what happens for an interval? For an interval I. Already I is a subset. I open it out. Every interval we have proved Lebesgue measure. Therefore, for any interval I, m of I is equals to m star of I as per this definition. But we know m star of I is length of I. Correct na? Therefore again, Lebesgue measure of an interval is nothing but the length of an interval. Lebesgue measure of an interval is length of the interval. Yes, any difficulty in the definition itself? If you have. थोडक्यात काय आहे, लिबेग मेजर हा लिबेग आउटर मेजरच आहे. फक्त आपण आता लिबेग मेजर कोणाचा काढणार आहोत? आता आपण फक्त लिबेग मेजर हा मेजरेबल सेट्सचाच काढणार आहोत. दुसऱ्या कुठल्याही सेटचा आपण लिबेग मेजर काढणार नाही. लक्षात येते सगळ्यांच्या? Okay, now let me write that proposition for which we have done this everything, that is countable additivity property. Okay, the statement says that let ei I equals to 1 to infinity be a sequence of measurable sets. Sequence of measurable sets, then prove that. What to prove? M of union ei, again this is less equal, summation M of ei. Now when we have a question again, still we are not getting countable additivity. This is also countable subadditivity, no?
Yes, ma'am.
But now we were restricting one more condition, that whatever these EI selected are pairwise disjoint. Okay. Next statement says that if the sets EIs are pairwise disjoint, then prove that. What is to prove? Lebesgue measure of union EI is now exactly equals to summation over I measure of EI. Why this condition was essential? We will just check. We have proved that lemma which we have used in order to prove that the outer measure is finitely additive. Let me just recall this one. Where it is? Here it is. M star is finitely additive. The lemma which we have proved, we have written for, yes, finite sequence of disjoint measurable sets. Correct, no? Therefore, proving countable additivity also, we want a sequence of disjoint measurable sets. Means again the countable additivity is not true for any measurable sets. This is true only for pairwise disjoint measurable sets. Correct, no? Let us prove the result. Okay, this is what a statement. The first statement is no doubt true by countable subadditivity property, right? Now, this one. This is true by countable subadditivity property of outer measure. And we know outer measure is nothing but Lebesgue measure for measurable sets. The first one, there is nothing to prove in the first one. The job is to prove the second one only. Right? Let me go for the proof. If you have any kind of query during the explanation, you can stop me and ask. Okay? Let EI running from 1 to infinity be a sequence of measurable sets. First we will prove for measurable sets, second we will prove for disjoint measurable sets. Shall I write this as step 1? In step 1 we will prove the first part. In the step 2 we will go for proving this countable additivity. Now this we want to prove countable subadditivity, no? Let me write it again. What to prove? Lebesgue measure of union EI is less than or equals to summation of Lebesgue measure of the respective sets. This is the aim. Okay. Let us start with the left hand side. For this left hand side starts with Lebesgue measure of union EI Okay, actually this is equal to Lebesgue measure union I equals to 1 to infinity. Correct now? Countable union I have written. Therefore, this I is running from 1 to infinity. But we know as these EIs are measurable sets, may I write this is nothing but outer measure. This is by definition itself. By definition. But what for M star of union EI? We have proved already
Less
this
equal
is.
summation.
Yes, less equal summation M star of EI. Reason here is outer measure M star is countably subadditive. Countably subadditive. Again, EI is measurable. Therefore, this outer measure is nothing but Lebesgue measure. Therefore, may I write this is less equal to, this is equal to summation M of EI. Hence the proof. That's why I told you nothing to prove in the first one because this is the countable subadditivity. This is countable subadditivity. Okay, this is hence the proof I can write for the first step. Now in step 2, what to assume? Let this sequence EI, yes, this sequence EI is, or instead of sequence I'll write EIs are pairwise disjoint. If EIs are pairwise, EIs are pairwise disjoint measurable sets. Disjoint measurable sets. One thing we have already proved. If this EIs are pairwise disjoint, then outer measure is finitely additive. This we have proved or not? As a note we have written. EIs outer measure is finitely additive for pairwise disjoint measurable sets. Now we will just make use of this statement in order to prove the required result. Therefore, let me just write down what is the claim first. What to prove in this section? Measure of union EI over I is exactly equals to summation over I measure of the respective disjoint measurable sets. This is the claim. This is what we wanted to prove. Okay. Yes, is that true up to this? Now for a finite sequence we will write first. Okay. Now for a finite sequence, EI, I running from 1 to n of disjoint measurable sets. What we have proved or what we have? Yes. For finite sequence, what we have? We have proved
M
finitely
star of
additive.
union I equal to 1 to n
Equal to
summation.
first shall I write here equal to m star?
Yeah, yes ma'am.
Okay. And then we will write this is equal to summation m star. Okay. And then this is equal to m of EI, right now? The reason here is outer measure m star is
Finitely additive.
finitely additive. Outer measure m star is finitely additive. Okay. So let me write this statement again. M of union I equals to 1 to n EI equal to summation I equals to 1 to n m of EI. Therefore, here one can say that Lebesgue measure is also finitely additive. Lebesgue measure m is finitely additive. Now what to do? We will go for infinite sequence. For finite sequence we have proved. Now I will go for an infinite sequence of disjoint measurable set. Now for an infinite sequence. Infinite sequence means which union we were going to consider now? Countable union, correct? Or infinite sequence of disjoint measurable sets say ei running from 1 to infinity. What is the relation between this finite sequence ei and infinite sequence ei? Which one is contained in which? Is what I want. What is the relation between these two sets?
Finite is contained in countable.
Surely, finite is contained in countable union. Therefore, let us just take Lebesgue measure on both the sides. What is Lebesgue measure on both the sides? M of union ei, I running from 1 to n is less equal. Can I write? Less equal by union ei, I running from 1 to infinity. Okay, I running from 1 to infinity. I'll just write this inequality by flipping out. That is, first I will write m of union ei, I running from 1 to infinity. Now may I say this is greater equal by major union ei, I running from 1 to n. Correct? But what is this right hand side? May I say this right hand side? Just now we have proved this is finitely additive. Therefore, major of this finite union is equal to summation I equals to 1 to n. M of ei, I have not given a number anywhere. Now let me call it as 1. What is the reason here? 1. Is that clear? That what kind of inequality we have obtained? M of union ei, I running from 1 to infinity is greater or equal by summation I running from 1 to n m of ei. M of ei. Now what the job we will do, as this left hand side is independent of n, we will take the limit n tends infinity on both the sides. And if I take limit n tends infinity, what is the effect on this right hand side? This sum will be from I equals to 1 to infinity. And first inequality of this aim we will prove. Na? In order to prove this, we were going to prove two inequalities. One is m of union ei is greater or equal by summation m of ei. Second, it is less equal. Right? Two inequalities we wanted to prove. And here, if once I take limit on both the sides, may I say first inequality will be proved. Okay? Taking n tends to infinity or taking limit as n tends to infinity, we get. What we will get? There is no effect on the left hand side, no? This is greater or equal by summation I equals to 1 to infinity m of ei. And let me call this as statement number 2. Now what remains to prove? The reverse part of the inequality. What the reverse I wanted to prove? M of union is less equal by m of ei, but that is already true by countable subadditivity property. Correct, na? Again, by countable subadditive property, countable subadditivity of m star, we have what we have? M of union I equals to 1 to infinity ei. First I will write it is equal to m star because I want to use the property of m star. Okay, once I write in terms of m star, this is less equal by summation I equals to 1 to infinity m star of ei, and then I will replace this again by m star by m. This is m of ei. Okay, so what we have proved with this, m of union I equals to 1 to infinity ei is less equal by summation I equals to 1 to infinity m of ei, and let me call it as statement number 3. Now look at 2 and 3. 2 is greater equal, 3 is less equal, therefore both gives me equality. So from 2 and 3, measure of union I equals to 1 to infinity ei is exactly equals to summation I equals to 1 to infinity m of ei, or one can write simply m of union ei over I is equal to summation m of ei over I. Okay, hence the proof. What this Lebesgue measure gives us? Lebesgue measure gives us the countable additivity property only if for pairwise disjoint measurable sets. Only for pairwise disjoint measurable sets. Okay, let me just recall the proof again. We want to prove countable additivity in case of Lebesgue measure. No difficulty in proving this, therefore we will focus on second step only. Okay, in the second step we want to prove countable additivity property. Equality we want to establish with the help of two different inequalities. Again, in these two inequalities, may I say this less equal inequality is obviously true now by countable subadditivity property. The challenge is to
Yes,
prove
ma'am.
only greater equal. The challenge is to prove m of union ei is greater equal by summation m of ei. Therefore, in order to prove this, first we have started with the finite sequence. And for finite sequence of disjoint measurable sets, we have written the Lebesgue measure is finitely additive. Then we have started with an infinite sequence of disjoint measurable sets. The obvious relation is finite union is contained in countable union, and with this we have by taking the Lebesgue measure on both the sides, we have established very easily that Lebesgue measure of union ei is greater equal by summation of the Lebesgue measures, and by countable subjectivity the reverse inequality is obviously going to hold, and just combining both one can say that countable subadditivity holds for Lebesgue measure provided the sets are pairwise disjoint measurable sets. The underlying sets are pairwise disjoint measurable sets. Yes? If you have any difficulty up to this, you can ask me. Is any difficulty? Only one information we have seen today. Right now. One theorem and one definition we have seen. Nothing else. Right? Shall I stop there? It seems you don't have any difficulties. You just make clear what is Borel set. Then only this concept will be clear to you. Every Borel set is measurable. And then going for a definition of Lebesgue measure and proving this Lebesgue measure is countable additive for pairwise disjoint measurable set. If this may be a question for your objective, that Lebesgue measurable set is countably additive only for what? The four options.
Pairwise.
The four options may be for any set, for any measurable set, for any pairwise disjoint measurable set, likewise. There may be four options. Okay. So for countable additivity for Lebesgue measure is true for pairwise disjoint measurable sets. This is what we have seen in today's lecture. It seems there are no difficulties. Let me stop for today. The next point we will see in the next lecture. Thank you for being with me for this lecture. No queries now? Sure, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you then.